Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever time that you stumble upon this. This is a very special edition. We are sitting down, Pawa Radio Sits Down with edition. And I have the privilege of sitting down with the one, the only, Stella Nyanzi. Now, she does not need no introduction, but for the sake of this conversation and because we are all about letting everybody in, I'll kindly allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, it's wonderful to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me, especially now during a particularly hectic time.
Yes.
I love Power 254. I love Boni. I love his wife, Jerry.
Yes.
My name is Stella Nyanzi. I'm a Ugandan exile. I'm a dissident poet. I hate dictators. I'm a mother to 3 children who are teenagers. I'm currently an exile living in Germany. I cannot leave home, and I often come to Kenya just to get a sense of belonging, of home.
Yeah.
I've been in exile for the last 4 years.
Yes.
I left because Uganda became too suffocating for me.
Right.
And although I'm an East African, Kenya has been my home as a refugee child in the 80s when my parents fled from dictator Yoweri Museveni's predecessor, that's Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, and previous to him was Dr. Idi Amin Dada.
Yeah.
And so Kenya has been home for me. Nilikuwa mkimbizi when I was a dogo child.
Yes.
And I came back with my children in 2021 and I applied for asylum. And so what's happening in East Africa, for me as an East African,
Yes.
is painful. I'm an East African. Tanzania is my home. Kenya is my home. Uganda is my home. The 8 countries of the East African community, this Jumuiya we sing about.
Yeah.
Why did we learn that anthem?
Right.
As East Africans, this region must mean something. The blue passport we were forced to carry must mean something for East Africans. So I'm an East African who is happy to be in Kenya, but very scared. Because of what has been happening to dissidents, such as myself. You asked me to introduce myself, and I'm an academic. I have a PhD in medical anthropology.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I cannot practice anthropology in East Africa because nobody will employ me. Why? Because I am the woman who say, Museveni matako butako, which means Museveni is just a pair of buttocks. He is shitting in Uganda's economy. He is shitting in Uganda's democracy. He is shitting. He has poo-pooed in our military. He has poo-pooed in our peace. And Museveni's poo-poo is evident all over East African. So because of my dissident poetry, my dissidence Facebooking, I went to jail 2 times.
Yeah.
I was accused of offensive communication against the president and his family, as well as cyber harassment and offensive communication against the president and his family. So I'm an ex-convict.
Right.
I was convicted of offensive communication. My poetry on Facebook is so powerful. It took me to jail. But why in East Africa today
Yes.
must a poet go to jail? Simply because
out.
her poetry offended a dictator.
And speaking the truth, and you know, you're here to stand in solidarity.
Speaking
Yeah.
truth to power.
Yes.
So Power 254, sauti yetu is important as East Africans. And so it's wonderful for me to come to your studios. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you for coming
this special
on.
edition.
Yes.
Because we as East Africans cannot afford to quiet ourselves, to silence ourselves, to choke our volume. I am the loud woman who calls herself a voice for the voiceless. In exile, I have relative safety to speak freely. Museveni will not arrest me again.
Yeah.
And so I'm here to stand in solidarity with Agatha, a comrade.
Yes.
I'm here to stand in solidarity with Boniface. But I'm also here to remind East Africans that this is more than just Boniface Mwangi, more than just Agatha Atuhaire, more than just Tundu Lissu, more than just Kizza Besigye, more than just Eddie Mutwe, more than just all those political prisoners, more than just the dead bodies lying in our different countries. You can all think about the dead Gen Zs that we found in those quarries. Who is murdering our children?
Yes. Yes.
The dead Ugandans whose names have no grave. Are they in mass graves?
Mass graves,
Are they in forests? Were they eaten by crocodiles? We hear that Museveni has crocodiles on an island where he feeds dissidents such as myself. So in terms of introducing myself, I'm a voice that say, we resist. We shall not keep quiet. I'm a dissident. I'm an academic. That's a dissident. I'm a poet. That's a dissident. I'm a mother, a woman. That's a dissident. And if all the men keep quiet, I'm the voice that ensures there will be dissidents speaking today in East Africa. And so I came to stand in solidarity. I offer my solidarity because I think in exile, if I can't be home, I may as well be on Power 254, crossing my leg
and having a conversation,
breathing life
yes.
into the revolution,
yes, yes,
into now, for the sake of the future. And when I introduce myself, the future is important because I was abducted in my country in 2017. If you don't believe, there's a UN petition to the UN Working Group against arbitrary detentions and arrests, abductions and arbitrary detentions. It's in 2017, there's a report as abducted. Why is it that East Africans today still get arrested, abducted? If people had continued the pressure they put up, free Stella Nyanzi, free Stella Nyanzi, free Stella Nyanzi in 2017, perhaps there wouldn't be a Boniface, perhaps there wouldn't be an Agatha, perhaps there wouldn't be a Chiza Besige, perhaps there wouldn't be XYZ. And so the future is important for us to think through when we're thinking about revolutions. It can't just be about now, because Samia Suluhu wants another term in office. Dictator Yoweri Museveni, who's been in power for almost 40 years,
life.
he wants... How old are you, sweetheart?
I'm 31. All my life.
I'm 51 in June.
Yes.
Museveni wants to rule my country for another 5 years. Ruto, he was told one term, but he also wants to come back. These dictators in our East African countries, I'm measuring on those three, although we want to remember that the community has lots of people. So
yes,
if we'd thought about the future in terms of planning our resistance, we'd have a mass of East Africans speaking. And maybe Agatha wouldn't be limping. Maybe Boni wouldn't be in hospital. So that's who I am. I'm a voice of reason. People call me mad. I think that we should be willing to fall mad if it's going to take madness to talk to dictators. In my country, I am dressed. You know that woman, today I've come dressed. Most of the time I'm dressed.
Most of the times.
But in my country, if my mouth is silenced and the guns are looking at me and I have nothing else, my breasts come to the front. These bazookas, when they get out of the bra, like pa, 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 I shoot them in court, I shoot them on the streets, I shot them at Makerere University. Because if they take away everything before they kill me, I still have this glorious thing. And this glorious thing will be our weapon on the front line. Women of East Africa must remember our history. In Kenya, the revolution that was led by Wangai Maathai, those grannies were not embarrassed by their bodies. They see this East African says, that woman is mad. Stella Nyanzi, she grew mad and she went and undressed. No, your grandmothers did this.
Yes, yes.
Don't allow them to take the resistance tools, our weapons away from us. Don't go saying matako butako such as myself. That's a very polite word. I've used worse words. Don't use those words if they're too hard for you, but do something. Speak something.
Yes.
Speak softly. Speak prayerfully. Go and shanda for us. Shanda ramamama. That Rachel in Ruto's house may become an agent of God bringing transformation in East Africa.
Right.
Janet Kaguta Museveni goes to church. You go and shanda ramamama on her behalf. Say, Ya Allah, Bismillah, Ya Allah, help us. Samia Suluhu is a woman of God. You pray if it's going to take prayer. But the resistance has to be pushed, whatever language. If you can't be vulgar. For me in my country, I'm a mother to twin boys, Kato and Waswa, when the decent women of society cannot speak. Women called Nalongo, the mothers of twins, are allowed to come into the space, to throw off our clothes and to say it as it is. We show you where you came from and we threaten you with it. When sanity and sane people cannot speak, we will show you where you came from, Ruto. We'll show you where you came from, Museveni. We'll show you where you came from, Samia. And we'll tell you to behave. Stop killing our children. And if the language of diplomacy does not work, the mad women of East Africa are going to fly in. We We are going to fly in. You will not intercept us because we don't look like Bonnie. We don't look like Agatha. We don't look like Martha Karua. We don't look like Willie Mutunga. We look like this. Like this. We wear kitenge. We have looks.
Yes.
This is the style of resistance. We even wear lipstick and spectacles and we speak English.
Yes. Good English.
Well, I have a PhD from London School of Hygiene and
There you
Tropical
go.
Medicine. Excuse me.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, when the madness is all it's going to take to change, bring sanity, take away insanity from our countries, we shall fall mad, but we shall redeem East Africa. So in terms of introducing myself, that's who I am, very briefly.
That was quite the introduction, and I mean, as you mentioned, you've said a lot of things, and we are going to unpack slowly by slowly. So this revolution is not just a Kenyan revolution; it's not just a Tanzanian. It cannot be. So why is it important that it goes beyond the individual? It goes beyond the borders of country. Might I add, these imaginary borders that were given to us by the colonialists? Why is it important for you in this moment to be leading with that kind of voice?
Right, so as I say to you, I was born in Uganda. When Uganda became unsafe for me, when I was a child, my parents fled to Kenya. Kenya has been the oasis of refuge for very many of us political prisoners when our parents, but also my children came in, the last 4 years, my children are here as refugees with me. I could have gone elsewhere, but because the borders are artificial, it was very easy for me to come to Kenya. There are people from Rwanda living in Uganda. People from the DRC have fled to Uganda. There are Somalis who have lived in Kenya for a long time, as well as Tanzania. So even before we go to our history, our current politics mean that there's a time when home is too dangerous. The East African community is important because it is a community. I want to come back to that a little later. But why it cannot be just about Kenya is because there's a unity of dictatorship flowing from the throne room of the old man Museveni. It went to Kagame, then it came to Ruto, then it's gone to Samia, it's in South Sudan, it's in Burundi, perhaps Somalia too. And if our dictators are united in terrorizing us, if they're united in corruption, if they're united in using the armed forces, whose salaries my tax pays? If my tax is not paying, debt that will be paid by my children is paying the salaries of those guns that are torturing our children in East Africa. Why it's important for us to come together as a people is because our dictators are united in how they're harassing us. Museveni doesn't just say, I'm going to fuck just Ugandans. He fucks Ugandans, whether they're in Uganda, or he'll come and fuck them. He's such a fucker. In Kenya, he's fucking in Uganda, and he's fucking in Kenya. He's fucking, Museveni is fucking, okay? And he's now fucking Ugandans in Kenya, Uganda, and in Tanzania. Agatha was living where? In Tanzania, okay? So these dictatorships in our different countries, the dictators are united in oppressing us. Before we go to colonial histories, which are so far away, Tanzania recognizes Germany. In Kenya, we recognize the Brits. In DRC, in Rwanda, in Burundi, they recognize France. So our colonial histories are separate. Our languages are separate. One of the most important things is that our pre-colonial societies, the Jaluo in Kisumu, very, very similar to the Acholi in my country. There are the people, the Baluya and the Baganda are very similar. Between Rwanda and Burundi and Uganda, we have all these cattle keepers, the nomads, very, very similar people. In fact, I mean, I don't want to go into the Tutsi Hutu histories, but you find the very same histories of agrarian versus nomad keeping or cattle keeping people in both Tanzania, Uganda, DRC, and Rwanda on those borders. So we're the same people.
We are the same people.
But one of the most important things for me when we stick onto these Kenya Uganda, I don't know what. I have heard the language of Samia Suluhu and very many people who criticize both Agatha and Boniface. They say that they are agents of imperialism. Okay? Samia Suluhu said they are imposing their bad manners from foreigners to our country, Tanzania. And we want to say to her that it is the colonizer who separated Tanzania from Kenya, Kenya from Uganda, Uganda from Congo, Rwanda and Burundi. We were one people. The boundaries are very colonial creations. And so the return to the East African community is a return to our Africanity, our Africanness, our oneness, and our resistance. Yes, we still work in neo-colonial ways with the colonial boundaries, but our resistance might find trans-border unities and solidarities of working together as people of East Africa. One of the things I witnessed when I was abducted, for example, is that when Ugandans could not say free Stella Nyanzi, the Kenyans were saying free Stella Nyanzi.
Yes, yes, yes.
The solidarity went all the way to South Africa, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania. They were saying free Stella Nyanzi. And when Museveni tried to silence the Ugandans, the Kenyans were like free Stella Nyanzi. It went all the way up to Ghana and Nigeria, right?
Yes.
The resistance even went past Africa. What does this say to me? It says that in terms of our solidarities, it has to be trans-border, transnational, trans-country, trans-language, trans-colonial history.
Yes.
If they want to divide and rule us, we will refuse to be divided. We shall come together in spite of our differences, recognizing our differences. I will not say you're not Kenyan. I will not say I'm not Ugandan. I'll say you're a Kenyan.
Yes.
I'm a Ugandan, but I see the East African human being.
Right. Yeah.
I recognize your yearning for freedom. Those dead bodies from those quarries, those mothers mourning, Boniface Mwanji's mom who is in hospital today, those could be the very same in my country. These are replicas. And one of the things why we need solidarity is because this moment opens up Samia Suluhu Hassan as a mama dictator. Don't you should go like
Naye
Bambi.
Bambi banange.
No smiling. We must, as women and girls and every gender minority who is not a man with patriarchal power, we must nod like you're doing, start grieving and wonder, how is it that an East African mother today, a mother who got into power after the death of Magufuli, how can she be the very same person terrorizing East Africans? How? A mother? They call her Mama. They call her Mama Samia. They call her Mama Samia Hassan. They call her Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan. They call her Mama East Africa, Mama Africa. We were celebrating. We had another woman at the helm of power. And this woman is terrorizing East Africans, and the women of East Africa are silent. They are laughing about this. A woman who heads the keys to the guns in Tanzania is now using the military in an East African country today, not like when the barbarians were still living in Stone Age caves. Today. And the mothers and the girls of East Africa, any menstruator in East Africa is not taking this seriously. That one of our own as women, as girls, as people with wombs who give birth to life, to the future of East Africa, that Samia Suluhu Hassan tortured Boniface? She tortured Agatha, a fellow woman? Hey, get serious like that. Take away your smile. Get serious. Because unless the women of this land get serious, they're going to be Martha Karuas intercepted in Tanzania, led by a woman on the orders of that woman. It's not a man. It's not Museveni. It's Samia, a woman like you and me. If I don't do something, you will get there and become the very same demons we've been fighting in my country for 40 years.
Yes.
Do you hear my pain?
I hear it.
If the women become as lax as the men, The person who intercepted Hanifa was intercepted. A veil-wearing Muslim woman intercepted another veil-wearing Muslim woman and said, you will not enter my country. Why? Because you're a human rights worker. Why? Because you've come to meddle in my affairs. The affairs of Arusha are the affairs of Kampala, are the affairs of Nairobi, are the affairs of Dodoma, are the affairs of Kisumu, are the affairs of Entebbe. These are our affairs as East Africans. Arusha cannot be the headquarters of the East African community. They call it Jumuiya wa East Africa, I don't know, Africa Mashariki. And you say to us as East Africans that we cannot enter the headquarters of Jumuiya East Africa Mashariki? Like, and people take it lightly? Are we mad? Did you pay for a light blue passport? If you paid for the East African Community passport, how can they tell you not to enter that land? How? And women are smiling and laughing and tweeting. And we call ourselves human rights activists. And nobody is saying anything to Samia Suluhu. Because Agasa is free. None of us is free when those dictators don't hear from us about all of us. Samia Suluhu must know we have a right to move in and out of these countries. If they don't want East Africans to go to Tanzania, you give us back Arusha. You give us back the East African Community Headquarters. Give it to us. Let's put it somewhere else where we shall go. Martha was intercepted. She couldn't enter Tanzania. The following day she went to Uganda. And the dictatorship in Uganda allowed her in and out. Uganda that's ruled over by a penny-scarring dictator. We all know him. He rapes our constitution. He rapes our women. He rapes our military. He's just a big penis raping all Uganda and everything. That is dictator Yoweri Museveni. We know he's a rapist of the people. A rapist of the constitution, a rapist of our economy, a rapist of our democracy. But Mama Samia Suluhu, walimuuliza, atiba anaweza kukojoa balcony. Hawezi kusimama like Museveni, but she's not becoming a rapist as well. She's becoming a rapist as well. And the women of East Africa are silent. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. If the men are silent, the women must raise their voices. Run mad. You run mad and tell her you cannot be called mama. Ati mama. Mama wa nani? Mama gani? What sort of mama says, do not come because you're a human rights defender? What was the reason? Because you're human rights defenders coming to observe. Coming to observe? Observe what? A trial. A court trial. From Kenya. From Uganda, going to Tanzania. Tundu Lissu carried bullets in his body. Were there 27 bullets in his body? 17 bullets. We can make them 107 bullets. It could be one bullet. But this mama, she's not my mama. She ain't my mama. Rihanna sang a song. You ain't my mama.
Oh, J-Lo. I ain't your mama.
Yeah, that one. She ain't her mama. East African women should tell her she ain't her mama. Because she ain't her mama. A mother called mama. Just like Mama Rachel. The shundering woman who prays for all of us in tongues. Just like Mama Janet Museveni, who eats her children. She literally eats her children and bites them and swallows them. Cooks her children in Uganda for her son Muhozi and her husband, Dictator Yoweri Museveni. Those mothers, we have to tell them, we the women of East Africa are saying, you're not our mom. You cannot be our mother. And take away, hey, start crying, my daughter. You cannot be our mother and you start taking away our freedoms. Because our freedoms, we are born with freedom. It's inherent. Our human rights are given to us simply because we are human. I don't have to do anything to have the freedom of movement. Why are you intercepting East Africans going into Tanzania? They are not foreigners. These are people you can get anytime. But they're going to do what? To stand in court. To stand in court. To witness a court hearing of an opposition leader. It is not a crime to oppose a government in power. In democracies, it is our right as East Africans. What crime did Agatha commit? What crime did Boniface Mwangi commit? To go and observe? Why are these dictators so scared? Of what? East Africans carrying their constitutions and their passports? Why are the dictators scared? But this is our power as people, that they know that if we come in as human rights defenders, we are coming in with the power and the voice of the masses. We are watching you. A court trial. What's going to happen when observers, independent observers, have to enter Tanzania for the election that's coming at the end of this year? What will happen when these observers have to enter Uganda? A precedent is being set that we can't have foreign independent observers coming to observe. If they can't observe a court proceeding, they can't observe a court trial. Will they observe elections? Will they observe? And so for me, why it's important for us to have solidarity.
Yeah.
In my country, Uganda, dissident voices are growing mute. But perhaps there'll be some solidarity from Kenya. In Tanzania, we now know there's an evil monster there, posturing around as a Muslim mama. We usually know that Muslim moms are very pacifying. They pray for us. They teach us how to love God and how
Graceful.
to love. But Mama Samia Suluhu, what sort of God does she pray to? I hope she fails in the election. I hope nobody votes for her. I hope that her injustices, her torture of East Africans, her disappearances of Tanzanians, her interception of mere legal minds. What were these lawyers going to do by observing the Tundu Lissu case? What are they going to do? Let them observe, eat their breakfast in hotels, go away. There's so much power in letting us have our freedoms. But she's now exposed herself as the true dictator she is. And I think for me, that why East African region must not be given up. The community, the idea of being one as East Africans must not be given up, is because we have already seen they fear us. Wanaogopa, wajinga, wanaogopa. They have guns, but we have the power of the masses. Imagine if hashtag free Boniface Mwangi, free Agatha Atuhaire was trending, not just in Kenya and Uganda, but all over our 8 countries. In Arabic from Somaliland, in Kiswahili and Sheng from Nairobi, in ile Kiswahili Safi from wale wanasema shikamo in Tanzania and the Zanzibaris. The Zanzibaris should be ashamed of their mama. In Luganda with our broken Luganda and our Luganda, is it? Broken Kiswahili. In Congo with their Franco and Lingala. In
Rwanda with
Kinyarwanda, but also their nice French, oh la la, and Burundi as well, but also South Sudan, you know. Imagine if hashtags were trending with the resistance flowing all over the Jumuiya. We would be unstoppable. So why is it important for me that although you are a Kenyan and I'm a Ugandan in exile, moreover, that I should stand in solidarity? Is because when you can't, I can amplify. When I can, you can build on what I have. We need each other because our dictators are learning from Museveni. Museveni is the best dictator in our region. He's the grandfather of all dictators. And now that he's passing on his shit, he's shitting in all your countries. People who laughed at me when I said Museveni Matako, and they said I was vulgar, they begin to see his shit. What Samia Suluhu is doing is Museveni's shit. When our police officers were beating up the young men, Gen Zs on your streets, that was Museveni's shit in your country. Now you understand why he's just a pair of buttocks. Wherever Museveni is, he just shits. When you see Museveni and you want your countries clean, you say, hatutaki wa dictator hapa. Do you understand the metaphor, the poetic language of the pair of buttocks? I was not falling mad. I was being a poet doing my dissident poetry. And as a poet doing my dissident poetry, I wish the poets of East Africa, all the voices of East Africa would begin to percolate around the same issue. Imagine if all the rappers and all the musicians and all the poets and all the writers in East Africa were saying the same thing. We don't want dictators, and our creativity, whether it was by music or by written word or by whatever, painting, was saying the same thing. We don't want dictators in our countries. Wouldn't it be so much stronger?
There is a clash there. How do we recognize the power of our voices? Because not a lot of people have access to even know that they can speak up and that it can be impactful.
Don't allow that. Unless one is born without sound. We all have a voice. I am loud. Okay?
And I'm here for it.
I do not need loudness always. When I'm sick and tired in my house, my children know that I just need a whisper. I need soft music.
And that should be enough.
And that heals me. We all cannot scream like Stella Nyanzi, but we all have a voice. The still small voice of the Holy Spirit. Okay, the big bang voice of thunder and lightning. We need all our different voices, but each of us has a different sort of voice, and our voices must not be silenced. Whether we whisper or we shout or we talk or we whatever, our voices are important. And I always tell people, find your voice. Don't allow them to take it away from you. One of the biggest things that has taken away voice from people is fear. And as a mother, I organize as a mother from the place of motherhood. I know that when men organize, we're all supposed to come to the front line marching in our boots, but not all of us can do that. What I say to people is find your voice. Your voice could be rapid response. That you'll never march on the front line, but as long as comrades are arrested, your voice is to take food, take medicine, get litigation, get medical aid. Don't come to the front line if you cannot. Come at your point of expertise, ability, and later on you slowly build and shift. But come. If your job is to hold a placard, you hold it. You hold it, okay? Some of us are going to be diplomatic and go and speak things. If you can't speak, find a voice in writing. Find a hashtag. I am all for online activism, internet-based activism, cyber activism, hacktivism. Don't allow people who are on the ground to say to you, you just tweet all the time. And then those of us who are street protesters, who dance on the streets, that's how we did it. Like toy in South Africa. Toy, you know that toy? Toy, you know that toy?
Yes.
We can come to the streets and dance defiantly. Those of us who undress, me, I'm a nude protester. You bring your maneno. I'll dress for you. But not everybody can do that. The ones who type with their manicured fingers, you type. Type those letters to the embassies. Type those letters to the people. We need money. If you have money, give us money. All of that is voice and articulation. It doesn't have to be sauti. Okay?
Yes.
If your role is to cook food for protesters, you cook the food because we are going to need to build sustained revolutions. The revolution with hungry stomachs.
As we know, in this moment, democratically, Tanzania is going for their elections this year. Then next year, Uganda. Then 2027, Kenya is going back to the ballot. In terms of sustaining the revolution, what do you think this moment means?
I mean, that's a really important question. For me, as a member of the opposition political party in Uganda, who's sort of been active on the scene, I think that one of the saddest things to witness for me is the fragmentation, the disunity, the divisions, the mistrust in, among, and across opposition political parties. Which means that therefore we don't have enough people supporting the opposition contenders. And those that are supported have each taken a piece of the piecemeal. I think Kenya has got perhaps the only successful history of coalition building of opposition members. Now, what has happened in Uganda is that dictator Museveni has mastered the divide and rule. Our opposition political parties are really disunited. Within each political party is a split. In my political party, Forum for Democratic Change, that was led, or whose first president was Kizza Besigye, we have had splinter groups. You know, we had the Forum for Democratic Change, we had the Alliance for National Transformation, we now have the Platform for Freedom, which started only this week, last week. And in NUP, there is splint between Bobby Wine's faction and a man called Mpuga, who is a corrupt member of parliament who's gone off with a faction. But there's also internal warring around resources and around ethnicity and around positions and power. In the other political parties, historically, Democratic Party, the Uganda People's Congress, Conservative Party, to a less extent, there are all sorts of fragments. Now, within each political party, there are fragments, but also within the opposition political parties, we have failed to have a successful alliance. When Martha Karua came to Uganda, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, she advised opposition political leaders to sit together and try to unite and come up with one leader. Now, one leader means that we're going to trust the electoral system. Part of the problem with the elections, why Yoweri Museveni, the dictator, has been in power for a long time, is that even before the elections are rigged, the system is rigged. He appoints the Electoral Commission. It's not independent. He appoints all the commissioners. He organizes the ballot. He organizes the announcement of the ballot. He organizes how political parties can organize. He authorizes and registers political parties. He militarizes the election process. And so in terms of democracy, for us in Uganda, every 5-year election is a sham. He has already rigged the system because of imbalances of power created by histories, even before the election comes, right? We don't need to campaign to know we are beaten. He's beaten us hands down even before the elections happen. Now, the question was, how do we ensure we don't have a new dictator? And I want to say that our struggles must be intersectional. People have criticized me for criticizing patriarchs, misogynists in our opposition political parties. Why do you criticize Bobby Wine? Because I want to see more women in NUP, his political party. Women cannot just be pretty flowers who sit, but they don't think, they don't budget, they don't plan, they don't represent. They want us to sit there quietly and to wait for the men. The men go out and bring bottles as the women are sitting. The women have to postpone their programs simply because the men have to go, the men have the power. The women just sit and wait for the commands of the men. We cannot afford to have an opposition that has patriarchs and women who allow patriarchy. So when Bobby Wine goes to power and he still thinks that he can treat women as substandard citizens, we will have a new Museveni in that regard, that he'll be an abuser of women. Maybe he'll never punch his wife, but he thinks that women can only be pretty flowers.
It's quite unfortunate.
I'm still answering your question.
Yes.
In terms of our movements being intersectional, we have to be anti-capitalist. We have to be anti-imperialist. We must have Ubuntu or Africanity and our African values. These leaders must know that they cannot look to Europe, America, Britain to prioritize the interests of profit that's driven by capital motives of the West. They have to look at the poor people that they're leading, the ones who give them the votes. So if, for example, Tundu Lissu, who has gone to prison, and we're saying, free Tundu Lissu, Tundu Lissu, if the movement does not tell him, hey, you have to be pro-poor, you have to create public health services that cater for the woman who cannot afford to give birth without aid from the state, Tundu Lissu will go to power and privatize. And one would need to have health insurance. What happens to poor women who cannot afford health insurance?
Yes.
What happens to the unemployed youth who don't have jobs? What happens when Tundu Lissu goes to power? If we allow him to focus on capital, to focus on an imperialist agenda, we will produce another Samia Suluhu who is selling off the Serengeti and dispossessing the Maasai. And so we replace one Samia with a Tundu Lissu who is a Samia. Okay, so we must have intersectional movements when we are thinking. It has to be feminist, it has to be anti-capitalist, it has to be pro-poor, it has to be, what are all those things we're looking for? Anti-homophobia. I mean, in a country we have homophobic leaders. All the opposition political parties are not going to speak for homosexual people. Wanasema ati washoga, sijui wana mashoga. Okay? But we cannot afford to say we are fighting for our freedoms, and at the same time we're saying, murder that man because he loves another man. How? We should say we are all human beings. Okay? And so if we do not work on the next leader in East Africa who will replace whoever is there in intersectional ways that remember that all the East Africans residing in our East African territories are human. And we have an intersectional human rights approach where feminists are not just fronting the issues of women, but also poor women, because the feminist movement is very classist. We are middle class and professionalized. Dirty poor women who have to sell sex on the roads, or dirty women who don't pay sex, or second wives. We don't want those ones to be part of our movement. We are very moralizing, at least in Uganda. It is the married women, the church wives, and the single young girls who are virgins. Anything else that's impure sexually is not wanted in the movement. And so then you will have a woman president who will reproduce the patriarchy and the hatred of the lower classes, right? So what I'm saying is, we cannot just organize freedom. We have to define intersectional terms of what our freedoms mean. And we have to teach these things to the upcoming people. We must always criticize the men in our opposition political parties. I criticize Bobi Wine every day. And people hate me for criticizing him. I criticize Kizza Besigye almost every day. And people hate me for doing that. But we cannot allow to have replacements of Yoweri Museveni, who killed my voice just as Museveni did. The moment a revolutionary leader is protected from criticism, we are having another demagogue. We cannot afford to have other demagogues, because when it comes to power, he will shut down civil society organizations that are criticizing him. He will shut down human rights organizations. They've done that in Uganda. The United Nations Human Rights Organization, their mandate was closed. No, sad. Don't laugh. Sad. You should touch your cheeks like this. I taught you what to do.
And think about my life, and our life.
Oh, think about how a country that subscribes to the UN Convention on Human Rights, UN Declaration, UDHR, of Human Rights, can tell the United Nations Human Rights Organization, you pack your lousy office and go. Okay? So part of what I'm saying is, yes, we must be decolonial, we must be feminist, we must be pro-cure, pro-poor, pro-environment, and that is one way to ensure that our criticism to our next leaders is taking care of everybody. It's going to be careful thinking. And maybe the very last thing for me is that I am tired of having civilian leaders who end up as military demagogues. They get into power, and suddenly they become autocrats. And so your question for me, the last bit I want to talk about is, as East Africans, we must think about the dynastic role. I know that in Kenya you have a long history of the dynasty, whether it was Baba Raila and his father, whether it's the Uhurus. In Uganda, we have a new dynasty. They call themselves the Bachwezi. The Bachwezi are supposed to be demigods, half god, half human. So Museveni's son is supposed to be the next demigod, being groomed to take over his father's office. What I think as Stella Nyanzi is Muhoozi, the son to Museveni, is already in office. The tortures that are being mandated today are already in the name of Muhoozi. My friend Kakweza Rukira Bashaija, who was tortured as a writer, and he came out of jail with a torn back and torn genitals and torn, pliers were used on his body. He says that the man who ordered his torture and brutalization was Muhoozi. So while people may be thinking Muhoozi may be coming, he's already here. The amendment to the Uganda People Defense Force Act, that we had, returns civilians back to military court. We are getting military justice again in my country. This is Muhoozi's doing. Okay? So part of your question calls us to think about how the revolution is considering these new dynastic entrances. And I think for me, A similar devil can be seen in the Chama cha Mapinduzi when Magufuli dies and Mama Samia Suluhu comes into power because she's Chama cha Mapinduzi, she's vice president. It's not perhaps the same because it's not father to daughter, but it really is one party appointing their own who now wants to come back for another term. Now, I think for me that we have to think through, because often when we question, we are told, but Uhuru Kenyatta did a very good job replacing whoever he replaced who came after Mzee Jomo, right? What does it mean when a republic can have monarchies? And what does it mean when the monarchy is military? That's a question that we have to consider and think through in Uganda. I don't know about Tanzania, I don't, and perhaps in Rwanda, right? So your question calls for introspection. Your question needs for us to go to the drawing board, and I don't think that the revolution has even begun touching what it means to organize in ways that are inclusive, what it means to create leaders who are sensitive to all these different factions in society.
Yeah.
Our revolutionary organizing right now is very ahistorical. We haven't tapped into, how did the Dedan Kimathis do these things? How did the Mzee Julius Nyereres do these things? How did Kwame Nkrumah, you know, these anti-colonial, pro-independence revolutionaries, because we're not the first revolutionaries.
No.
I think one of the things that is lacking from what we, that is why, for example, when I step into the revolutionary moment of our ancestors, women have been undressing for a long time. In my country, people are like, Stella Nyanzi has gone mad. Stella Nyanzi a good dead dalu. Like, hey, Bambi, let's pray for this woman. She's run mad. But our grandmothers for centuries in Africa were taking off their clothes in resistance.
Yes.
Now, Africans, East Africans, Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians are not taught our immediate history. The women in Uganda didn't know that Wangari Maathai undressed. And the old ladies, they fought for, what is it, Karura Park? Karura Park.
Forest, yeah.
And the Uhuru Park was being sold off.
Yes.
These old mamas, grannies, they undressed. Okay? And because we don't know that history, but we know about Martin Luther King, who was an important person. We know about
Rosa
Marie
Parks.
Antoinette. Yeah, we know these people. Do we know our immediate history?
Right.
Is our revolutionary moment and organizing historicized in ways that make meaning to our people? So that before I look for Pussy Riot in Russia, I am looking at what were my grandmothers doing to change things. That's the first thing. Okay. I think the second thing is that our moment has also got to be, in addition to history, we need comparison around other revolutions. How did Yugoslavia do it? How did Afghanistan do it? How did Egypt do it? How did South Africa do it? Who is the revolutionary you're looking at? Those ones, you know, Latin America, like the different moments we've had revolutions.
Yeah.
Because we need desperately a revolution, maybe not so much in Kenya, maybe not so much in Tanzania, but in Uganda we are dying. We are dying for a revolution. And if you think that Uganda is far away from you, you will wake up and Ruto will be in power for 40 years. 40 years. But we need to compare. How did they do it in Egypt? Okay, how did they do it in Libya? What did not work so well? I've heard that territorial revolutions are not working. What can we learn from the failures of others?
Yeah.
But who is thinking for our movements? There is a separation between the academy and the activists, between the thinkers and the streets and the creators. I love creatives because we have to have an injection of theory and action and dreams. The creators, the creatives dream for us about tomorrow. But they need theory from the academics who study history and analyze. And us, the street workers, us, the foot soldiers, us who are saying down dictatorship, down, and holding placards and saying all sorts of things and organizing. We need fusing of these areas. In my country, university academics do not speak for the revolution because they will lose their jobs. When I was teaching at the university, as a research fellow at the university, we had comrades who had students who were posturing as students but were actually informants. We had the government paying for students to inform on, spy on lecturers, especially those of us in the social sciences and humanities who teach about philosophy and politics and history and
thinking,
and they would report. And I have colleagues who have served time in prison simply because of the reports that their university students were taking to our internal security ISO, Internal Security Organization, or our CID, that's Criminal Investigation Department. But the intelligence mechanisms have frozen the thinkers. We don't have a Patrice Lumumba. Is it called PLO Lumumba?
PLO Patrick, yeah.
We don't have thinkers thinking as they should for the revolution. But we have to find ways in which the Gen Zs in Kenya challenged us. That we can think for ourselves. We can think with ourselves. We can think by ourselves. We can begin to inject from all over. We can begin to infuse ideas. One of the things I loved was the Bangladesh students' revolt or revolution that happened in tandem slightly after the Kenyan revolution. And there were crisscrossings of ideas that were happening online, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of what we need to do, therefore, we need to hope. There is so much hopelessness. I come from Uganda. I see it catching up in Kenya. We need to hope against hope. People are tired. They talk about the struggle. 40 years.
Yes.
Kizza Besigye, my leader, told us that the revolution cannot be a sprint. It's a marathon. And colleagues with whom you're with, they drop off. They break their legs. They sell out. They are bought by the dictatorship. They get arrested. They die. They go to exile. But it's a marathon. Eventually, we win. Right? And we don't have this long-term thinking. Struggle builders want to come today. Bobby Wine, yes, we are removing the dictator. And then he finds himself 5 years later. He's still removing the dictator. And it is so frustrating if we don't get a long-term vision. Having a long-term vision for the revolution does not mean that we're not thinking we will take over tomorrow. Another thing that we need to be able to do is to find ways of working with the military. I come from a country where the military has been possessed, captured, taken over by the dictatorship. Part of our organizing as non-violent, peaceful human rights defenders or revolutionaries is we have been colonized to think that the guns and the army, because they have a monopoly over violence, we can never have workings with them. Now, my thinking as Stella Nyanzi is because we are fighting against a militant dictatorship, we have to find partnerships with the military. When we go to the streets, I am tired of seeing the guns and bullets that I pay for, that my father paid for, shooting my children. We have to find ways of subduing the military, and we must begin to converse with them. You want to find ways of how we're going to do this? We need the military on our side. We need finances. I have been telling all the leaders I know that we cannot be poor and fight against Museveni. He's buying out all the comrades that I know. You're unemployed, you're unemployable. There's no business of yours that will go through. They're going to tax you. Eventually, you're so frustrated. You have no customers, you have no clients, you have such a big tax bill. And you're like, I'm not supporting the revolution anymore. And if nobody supports the revolution, it cannot sustain itself. The masses need resources to do the work that we do. A lot of the work that we do is unemployed, is unpaid work. It's labor that's not recognized or acknowledged. And so we die of fatigue. We are so tired. We are underpaid or never recognized because no one is putting resources into the revolution. You can't have a revolution like a miracle. Jesus standing, I don't know, 2 loaves of bread into feeding multitudes. You know, Jesus, we need to find resources to teach, even community education. To have a camera and lights and have internet daily, regularly. It's not free. Maybe you're a volunteer, but I'm not going to volunteer every day for 2 years as a revolutionary. Who will pay my bills?
Right.
So when the dictator comes and buys me out, you'll say, hey, she's a sellout. Were you paying her rent or do you want me to sell sex? And if I sell sex, then you say, those revolutionaries were malaya too. How were malaya? But But who's going to fund the revolution? I can't do it myself. I can't do it myself. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
So we need to
collective.
inject, because it is not a one-stop. Who's going to pay for the medical aid of Boniface Mwangi and Agatha and all the other foot soldiers who are wounded and we don't know about?
Right.
Who's going to pay for the legal aid? I work with lawyers because I sue the government left, right, and center. And the government sues me left, right, and center. To get a lawyer, my dear, is not a laughing man, no. We need cash. Street protests are becoming criminalized. They just cut you like grasshoppers and they throw you into dungeons. In Kenya, they throw you into dungeons and they release you. In Uganda, I have sat on, you sit your black ass on the floor of prison, hoping that there'll be a lawyer coming to see you. Day 1, day 7, week 1, week 2, week 4. Hey, 1 month, fuck. Who's going to pay the bloody lawyers? There's so many dissidents in court, in jail. The jails are full because the lawyers are unpaid, because people think that the revolution is going to feed itself. No!
It's not, yeah.
And so before you talk about ideology, people say, our revolutions have no ideology. They're just practical things.
Small, yeah.
Small things. The teaching is important. Because it's now been generations. In my country, it's been generations. 4 decades. 4 decades of organizing against Museveni. The people who dropped off are now gray-haired. Many are in their graves. There are people your age who are coming into the thing, and they think they're the first revolutionaries, Gen Zs. You don't tell them anything. Us, we are doing it our way. And then they just reproduce the same wheel. They do the very same dumb things we did. And they're like, we are removing a dictator. Using what? Your bare fists and your tweets. I am not underplaying new energy, but I think we need collaboration between the old guard, the middle guard, and the young guard. Now, what Museveni did effectively in Uganda is the older opposition and the young opposition, we don't see eye to eye. The young people on their Bobby Wine, they tell us, Temina Chemtugamba, which means you have nothing to tell us. We say to them, we say to them, you two, you're so young, like we dressed you in nappies. You know nappy? Not diapers, but nappy, not pamper.
Not pampers.
Those ones, they used to spread your leg
before,
here, spread your leg there. They used to have safety pins, one here, and I think one here. The Gen Zs don't know these nappies. But we are seeing people we dressed in nappies telling us how to remove dictators, despising the work that we did, calling us sellouts. Okay? We need intergenerational working together. The moment we lost it and we got so fragmented by generation, by gender, by class, by rural, urban, those who have Twitter and those who don't, those who have the access to the digital grid and those of us who don't, we lost what it means to organize. And so we are organizing in silos. The TikTok people don't talk to the Twitter people. The Twitter ninjas don't talk to the Facebook ninjas. Meanwhile, the other people on the ground, the CSOs don't talk to... CSOs for women don't talk to CSOs for men. CSOs for men don't talk to religious leaders. Religious leaders don't talk to finance. But we need to have intersectional, mingling, commingling. We need to reawaken. Then issues around ideology can come in. Issues around tujenge, sisi pamoja can come in. But how does one begin to unite without resources? How does one unite when one gun, one man with a uniform and one gun will come to the organizing and everybody will say, hey, and they take off. Okay? So we need to, I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about the military, I'm talking about ideology, I'm talking about intersectionality.
Yes, artists.
I'm talking about everybody is needed.
Yes.
And I think for me, to do all of this, we're going to need voice.
Yeah.
The voice brings the ideas, the voice is put out and we get the critique and we improve. We must never stop speaking for the revolution.
Wow.
We must never stop speaking. What does this mean? Like, even when you're speaking stupid, speak. I say to people, even if you don't know what you're saying, you speak. Because when you speak, people will build on what you say. And I say to people, you don't have to be taught or trained. Nobody teaches us about the revolution. I go to places and people say, yeah, Nyanzi, you come and speak. I'm like, no, let that person speak. Because the old methods don't work. No, like really, they don't. we were not organizing with people who have cyber crimes. When I was arrested for cyber harassment, I was like, fuck, I'm a cyber
Criminal.
All my crimes are cyber crimes. All of them. I've been to prison so many times. I've been arrested, I don't know, 40 how many times. But prison, 2 times. Cyber. You're looking at a cyber criminal. Hey.
Mama, I made it.
But my question is, how do we organize online? When the state is like 24 paces ahead of... Do you play chess? You play chess?
What?
Do you play chess?
No, I do not. Yeah.
What do you play?
Ludo. I play music.
Interesting. I love that.
I play music.
What? Piano, guitar?
I'm kidding. I don't play nothing. Maybe cards. Uno.
Okay.
Would that be a good metaphor? Yes, when I'm shuffling and,
Yeah. I'm trying to find a way I can work my metaphor into your cards. And I'm not doing so well.
That's fine.
But I guess what I wanted to say was that the state, if you used to shuffle your cards like this, the state now shuffles like that. No. They're shuffling and it's working. They're 5 steps ahead of us, 25 steps ahead of us. Those of us who organize online, this is the last point I will make. Those of us who organize online are perhaps the last port the state will call. They've shut down the streets, they've shut down the civil society organizations, they've shut down human rights organizations, they have recolonized the colonizer, so all our embassies are not working for us, foreign, international are not working, at least in Uganda. All that we're left with is people who can organize online. So what they have done is to create surveillance laws that permit the state to surveil us.
Yeah.
Many of us operating online have no clue what the laws governing computer use, internet use, the World Wide Web are. And so when I was arrested the first time, I was like, fuck, they even cyber laws? Like, really?
What is this? Yeah.
And then there's a whole body of lawyers studying cybercrime. But in Uganda, we have social media army. Young people without jobs recruited by the state, paid a monthly salary to just surveil who does what online and to find ways they can book us. Okay? When I was first arrested for cyber crimes, cyber harassment of the president and offensive communication, it was strange. But these days in Uganda, 5 people arrested for TikTok production, 10 people arrested for Facebooking, 1 person with a Twitter. It has become the order of the day that the state is surveilling us online, finding crimes to book us with, maybe hate speech, maybe money laundering, maybe. And we have no clue. We haven't organized well enough online to arm our online ninjas with knowledge of the legal regime governing how we operate. But the state has now begun to find ways to curtail us. And if you live in Uganda, in terms of organizing, they know who is on the grid, they know when to take us off and when to put us back. When the Kenyans invaded the official Twitter spaces of the police in Tanzania and the different, I don't know if it was Kenyans, when the resistance invaded those spaces, I thought, wow, that's a win for us. Because the Tanzanian state is not as fast as the Ugandan state. The Ugandan state would know all these people and intercept them and arrest them even before they began doing nyeh. But in Tanzania, still saying, who did this? Okay. So in terms of organizing and how to refreshen or keep our revolution on track, I think we're going to do a lot of work online. We can't do just online work. We need both online and frontline or physical space organizing.
Yes.
But we must teach ourselves about the laws governing the space we're going to be organizing in terms of the internet. Many of us are cut short by 1 arrest and 1 charge and 1 conviction. And you'll never ever be a credible source of information because you're a crime. I mean, you're a criminal. Yeah. I was convicted, I was sentenced, and I was acquitted in the 16th month of my time in Luzira Women Prison, right? And I have no regrets, but now that I'm a little older, I think I should one thing I should have changed if I could go back was to equip myself with knowledge about how to beat the enemy in this online activism I was doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the next level training, particularly for 2026 Uganda, where we know that the internet has social media army. The internet is owned by UCC, so Uganda Communications Council, reviews and prohibits and bans content. But we have a cyber crimes unit in the police that has criminal and intelligence just looking out for people's production, especially the resistance, dissidents online. But we are not organizing. We are not organizing to equip ourselves with knowledge and information. All we do is digital security. You have VPN. Very good. It's not enough. We must teach ourselves the laws
beat them at their
governing the space where we are sort of left with. The streets in Kenya still work, but I have seen Kenyans shot either on the street or after the street. So that space is closing down for you as well. We are still able to do things online. We must guard that space and equip our foot soldiers with knowledge about how to work and not be bookable. By booking, I mean they book you with a police crime, right? We must be above being criminalizable. I have a message for the three presidents. Yoweri Museveni knows my message for him. We are tired. Museveni must go. I told him in 2016, Museveni matako butako. I am not withdrawing it. Museveni matako butako apamidde nsi yaffe. Museveni is a pair of buttocks who in Uganda, and we are tired of cleaning up your shit, Museveni. Kataha, your wife, Janet Kataha Museveni, Kataha tahe. Janet Museveni, you're not the mother of Ugandan girls. Ugandan girls still menstruate 10 years after your husband promised us menstrual sanitation. 10 years later, young Ugandan girls still miss school when they menstruate because you failed as a Minister of Education, Janet Museveni. Kataha otahe. Muhozi kaine rugaba. You are arresting, abducting Ugandans, taking them to your basement to teach them runyankore. Hey, iwe mwanawe muhozi. Aish, kachuge nyoko. There is some runyankore that I know. Muhozi kaine rugaba, kachuge nyoko. I want to turn to the so-called Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan. As a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a wife, as a woman in East Africa, living in exile, you're a disappointment, Samia. I refuse to call you Mama Samia. 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 Wesi mama wetu. Weni mbaya. Weni katili. Samia Suluhu. We mwovu, we ni shetani. You're the devil incarnate. People call you mama. Shame on you. The feminist movement all over the world celebrated because we thought we had one of our own. When you won the elections, you didn't even win an election. You came into power after Magufuli died. May his soul rest in peace. Women celebrated because we thought a woman who understood the plight of other women was coming into power. But you are abducting Tanzanians and disappearing them. Samia, you're not a mother. As we go into the elections, may you lose the elections so that the people of Tanzania will be free from your dictatorship, from your corruption. Sisi, watu wa Afrika Mashariki, sisi ni yatima. We are orphans, mama. We are orphans. Hatuna mama. You rejected us. You rejected Senior Counsel Martha Karua. You rejected Hanifa Safi. You rejected Agatha Tuhairi. Samia. The women of East Africa are calling you a May you lose the election. Shetani wewe. Go to hell. And finally, to Dr. Ruto, Kasongo, Zakayo, Chicken Hustler, the wheelbarrow pusher. What are you doing to Kenya? Dr. Ruto, what are you doing to Kenya? What are you doing to East Africa? Kenya used to be a haven, a safe space for dissidents to organize. My parents came here as refugees supporting dictator Yoweri Museveni. I brought my children to Kenya, my second home. We are now scared of coming to Kenya. You arrested 36 members of FDC, my political party, in Kisumu, and you deported them back to Uganda, where they were taken to military tribunal and charged with treason. Ruto. Kasongo, Zakayo. Ruto. The Gen Z of Kenya told you must go. And you think they told you to go to Museveni for wisdom. What are you doing, Brother Ruto? What are you doing? Tenga tu. Anatenga. You know the what home? How could Dr. Chiza Besigye come and be abducted in Nairobi? Ruto, what shall I say? I'm a dissident who meets my family in Nairobi. I'm a dissident who meets my family. Ruto, nawe ni shetani. I don't want to call you shetani because I need to come to Nairobi to meet with people from my home. I cannot go back to Museveni. Naogopa. Lakini Ruto, wani katili. Bwana. Don't come for me because I'm telling you the truth. I'm a truth teller. Don't even bother looking for me. I'm going to come back to Kenya because sisi watu wa Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, we will learn Kiswahili. The leaders of East Africa must come to their senses. Otherwise, the people of East Africa are coming after you. We've had enough. We are tired. We are refugees. We are exiles. We are unsafe in our own country. The people of Kenya love the people of Uganda. The people of Tanzania love the people of Kenya. We are a community, a brotherhood, a family. Listen to the voices of the people. Otherwise, the people will take you away. I come in peace and power. The people are going to come against you. And you shall shuka like Zakayo shukad. Museveni utashuka. Shuka. Ruto utashuka. Samia. Westani wewe. You bitch. You gotta calm down. What was the other question?
The other question was how do you keep going?
How can I not keep going? Yeah. How can I not keep going when I'm in exile? When I want to go home, how can I keep quiet? How can I afford to be tired? It's a luxury I cannot afford. I cannot afford to be tired or lazy or lose hope. I cannot afford to see East Africans losing hope because if they do, there'll be many of us in exile. Where do you get courage? I get courage by thinking about if we don't act now, all our freedoms are being taken away from us. That I come to Kenya and I'm scared. I go to Tanzania and I'm scared. I wasn't scared 5 years ago. If we don't act now, there'll be more incarcerated Tundu Lissus, incarcerated Kizza Besigye's. You may think Tundu Lissu and Kizza Besigye are big people. Tomorrow it will be you, my sister. It will be your brother. And so it is our duty to inspire ourselves as East Africans. It's our duty because nobody is going to come from America or from Europe or from Asia or from Latin America to liberate us. Our liberation is ours. And so we must inspire a Pan-African spirit in ourselves as we stood in solidarity with South Africans when we were fighting against apartheid. We must overcome. I get encouraged because there's hope. History, all of history shows us that those of us on the side of the masses will win. We may suffer a little while, but the victory is ours. We shall overcome. And when the masses are tired, it is my duty, self-appointed, self-commissioned, underpaid, to remind the masses. Tusonge mbele, tusonge mbele, tusonge mbele, get up and go. And although I don't like Bobi Wine, there's a song he sang. I want to end with that song.
Sure.
That says, Situka tutambule, which means arise, let's walk. Dr. Chiza Besigye had been incarcerated in his house. He was under house arrest for a long time. And Bobi Wine picked up his guitar. And I see an intergenerational picking up of that guitar to take music to the house of the freedom fighter. And he sang a song, Situka tutambule, olugendo luwanvu, which means get up and let's walk. The journey is long. If we vumilia, we shall win. Okay? And it's an important song for me because we need to tell each other, bring your DJing to me and say, Stella, arise, let's go together. Bring your makeup to me and say, Stella, this is what I have. Arise, let us go together. Bring your beautiful locks and your anger and let's encourage each other. Get up and let's walk. We need to encourage each other intergenerationally, across genders, across countries, across professions, across skills sets, across whatever it is. So what encourages me is knowing I'm not alone. What encourages me is when you get your cell phone and say, can we take a selfie? Because we are seeing a particular work in each other. You're saying, I honor what you've done and I will do it. And I say, yes, I'll give you time. Let's sit and do this radio talk show.
Yes.
Because I see myself in the work that you're doing. I'm inspired by mentorship, that the young people get mentorship from the older people, and the older people get relief. When Moses is fighting and he's tired praying, the children of Israel, they come and support
His hands.
And
they kept winning.
And so we need the prayer warriors to stand with us, but don't just pray, because faith without actions is dead. So I'm not just a faith warrior who prays, I also want to act. I want my name to be written down when they're writing down the names of bad women who really terrorized those dictators. My name has to be there. Not as a good woman. No. But as a woman who would come and say things, she'd slap you with your words. You'd get so angry, you'd have to act. And there must be more of me.
Right.
Have a good night.
Nice girls do not change the world. Well, I will tell you this. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
I walked into this an interview. I'm leaving out very schooled, and I cannot wait to see my role in the revolution, pushing it, maintaining it, sustaining it with whatever I can do, rendering my voice to this revolution. With this movement, I leave this place very inspired. So I just want to say thank you so much for being the embodiment of the essence of the revolution and the movement beyond yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you for finding your voice, even when you said, oh,